Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be doing a full in-depth coolant flush on Project MR2. Let's go and take a look. Right, first things first, let's look at what we need to remove from the car for access. You will need to remove your spare wheel, the plastic trim behind it, the plastic trim on top of the radiator, and the front under tray underneath the car. Once that's all done, it's now time to start draining the coolant. Two quick things: jack your car up on 4-axle stands and make sure the engine and coolant is cool so you don't burn yourself. The first thing we're going to remove is the radiator cap. Pop it off, place it to one side. The next thing we're going to do is remove the drain plug on the radiator. Mine was pretty free, considering that it's been outside untouched and neglected for 12 years. So hopefully yours should be too. Let's dive underneath, get a tray or a bowl or a drawer out of your fridge, because I know that this will only fill up to a certain level. I've done this 5 times in the last 2 days. Drain, flush, drain, flush, drain, flush, and I've been dealing with blockages and heaters not working and unblocking pipes and everything. So I've drained it more than enough times to know exactly how much you're going to get out. So I know that this will be no more than half full once we drain the radiator side of the system. And I've done this, like I say, more than enough times in the last day or so. So maybe I've got it down to a fine art and I won't create a load of mess. I will. This is the messiest part of the drain down, so I've put down a little absorbent sheet because unfortunately when you undo that plug with the pressure it's under, it shoots here. You want it to just dribble out into your bucket, but initially it's gonna hit that axle stand. So we want to try and get our bowl up to catch it and hopefully not make too much mess. Right. As soon as we undo that, we're getting a few drips. But like I say, that's going to shoot right out there. Don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see. But you got to get this one right up here, because it's going to hit that tray hard. Like that. Straight over the top of it. That's taken the residual pressure out of the system. The next thing we're going to do, ignore this hose, that's part of our refill and bleed procedure, is we are going to undo and remove the plug that goes in the top of the radiator. And because we've got the cap removed, it can suck in some air and push the water out. So the water is going to come out just as hard as it did a minute ago. Right, that's the radiator side drained, and like I say, it's about half full. It doesn't make for pleasant viewing, it's very rusty, but like I say, I've kept unblocking pipes today. So every time I unblock something, I free up more muck into the system that's going to be swirled round and then flushed out. So I will repeat this procedure quite a few more times before we do our final refill. The next thing we're going to do is open the bleed on the engine itself, on the block by the thermostat housing. And then we're going to open our heater bleed as well. The next thing we need to do is to dive underneath the car and drain the block itself. To drain the block, you will need a 10mm socket, an extension, a ratchet, and a piece of hose of about 6mm diameter. Block drain, just up in there. Catch tank underneath. Undo. There she goes. The last thing to drain are the two coolant hard lines. Now, This is where I came a little bit unstuck yesterday, because one of them, before I even jacked the car up, the head just fell off and coolant was dripping out. So I had to drill it out and re-tap it. I then went to remove the other one and the same scenario happened. So both of mine have been drilled out to a bigger size and re-tapped, and I've made new plug bolts and put new washers on them. So mine are going to come out nice and easily. However, if yours hasn't been touched for a long time, you're probably going to be in the same position that I was in yesterday. Now, at this point, you may stop and go, what's the point, mate? I've drained the radiator down to that level, I've drained the block down to that level. How much coolant can be left in this system? I'll show you. There is quite a lot. It's deceptive. Just crack that one off. And that one off. Here it comes. Oh, not bad. Someone's done this before. And then pull over. And then there you go. And there you have it. There's another half a container full, which is how much we got out the radiator. So if you neglect those, you're not draining everything. And also, I know what you're all thinking, James, that looks awful. You're right, it is. But like I say, I've had this thing filled up and drained down, filled up and drained down, and I've been doing a lot of intrusive coolant system work on this. Every time I clear a bit of a blockage or play around with a pipe, I break off more debris and silt and rust, and this is what we've just drained out. So I'm going to follow this procedure a couple more times until I get clearer water coming out before I do a full refill. Oh, and also guys, make sure you dispose of your old coolant responsibly. Now then, the refill procedure. Before we refill the cooling system, we need to do a couple of quick things. We need to attach some hose to the engine bleed and open it 3 turns. We then need to attach some hose to the heater bleed and open it 3 turns. And we then need to attach some hose to the radiator bleed and open it 3 turns. And now we're ready to refill. Now if you're just changing your coolant, you will be refilling with coolant, but because I'm doing a flush, I'm going to refill with water, because I'm going to drain it all down again and then refill and drain and refill and drain until it goes clear, and then I'm going to use coolant on my last run. So all of our vents are open and we are going to add some coolant. Water for me, but coolant for you. And one quick thing, before you put any coolant back into the car after it's been drained, pop your lid off your overflow and just check that that is up to the maximum mark as well. Now I know from experience, because I've done this job about 5 times now in the last day and a half, that you're going to get about 7.5 litres of liquid in your cooling system, and you need to keep filling until the engine bleed point, the water starts to come up into the tube to the level of the filler neck. You're then going to close that one off and then keep filling until the heater and the radiator levels start to rise up in the hoses to the level of the filler neck. You're then going to close those 2 off, and then you're going to put your cap on, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Right then, water up to the top of the filler neck, all 3 bleeds are closed, and the level in the hoses got up to the level of the filler neck. The next thing to do is to pop the radiator cap on onto the first position, not the fully closed, first position. So it's a little bit loose. And then we're going to start the car up and run it for 3 minutes at an idle of about 2000 RPM. After that, we're going to knock the car off and our level will have gone down. We're then going to top it up to the top of the neck and then put the lid on completely and then run the car fully up to temperature. Check that the heater gets hot, check the flow and returns get hot, check that the thermostat opens and everything circulates nicely. And then we'll be pretty much done. Just keep an eye that you don't get anything bubbling over. 3 minutes and then you're done. Right, that's our 3 minutes done. We can now remove our cap and our level has gone down. So now we can just top it back up to the neck and pop the cap back on to the second position, fully honed. So there we have it. Oh, leaning on the C-pillar trim, the forbidden place on a Mark 1 MR2. Sorry guys. The car is up to temperature, the heater is blowing hot, and that's all going nicely. I now need to drain down and refill once, maybe twice more until it all runs nice and clear, and then I'll do my final fill up with coolant, which needs to be ethylene glycol based coolant, according to the Haynes manual. Now moving forward, if this was my final time and you've just followed this procedure, wait for the car to cool down fully, pop off your radiator cap, top up as accordingly, put your lid back on and then drive off into the sunset. I hope you found today's video helpful or informative, and if you want to see more from the build, don't forget to subscribe. Fingers crossed we will be going for that elusive first drive in the next video, and then it won't be long before we go to potentially pass our first MOT in 12 years. Thanks for watching guys, see you soon.